Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of our Scene and Nerd special series or segment, What You Can't See, in which Mr. David Pecci and I have discussions about the SyFy series Dark Matter. So this is our third episode, I guess our second to last episode for covering season 2, because there's only one episode left. So away we go. So how have you been, Dave?
Doing well.
Good.
Trying to figure out the job scene here. Hasn't changed much. I've had 2 more interviews, and I have 1 more next week. And if that one doesn't work out, I don't know what I'll do. Some days I just imagine myself driving off to the distance, into the sunlight in a car, and then like on the title screen, it says the end. I don't know.
Well, we certainly wish you the best of luck, man. So episodes 9, 10, 11, and 12. So if anybody wonders how we got here, it's not entirely our fault, I don't think. So we had a disconnect on recording times 1 week, but then this week, and I still, because I don't watch broadcast TV, I just don't really know how this came about. I guess I haven't Googled for it either. I'm sure there's a reason for it, like maybe Dark Matter missed airing 1 week, preempted for some reason. But at any rate, as far as I can tell, they broadcasted 2 episodes last Friday, both episodes 11 and 12. So I was mighty surprised when I went to my Xbox Movies and TV account and saw 2 episodes sitting there. And then there was a lot of strangeness. I encountered a lot of strangeness with mine. Trying to stream episode 12. It kept popping up saying that I was streaming from another location. And I had to keep stopping the episode and restarting it. So that was a bit painful. And I will do my best to hang in there tonight, but I am having a horrible allergy day. So it's actually felt at times like I had little grains of sand on the inside of my eyelid. So it's been a rough day. It was a rough commute home. So let's go all the way back to episode 9. I'll just quickly read the synopsis. So 2 faces danger as her body begins to collapse. The nanites no longer working. In hopes of saving her, they take their travels to Earth in search of the lab that constructed her. But will a familiar face stop them before they can save her? So obviously this episode we get Will Wheaton back. Right?
Honestly, these past 4 episodes, I think, were all extremely good, and each one pulled on somebody's like different heartstrings because should we give the spoiler claim right now too? I just forgot about that.
Yeah. So this show is recorded primarily targeting the audience of people who are also watching the show in the hopes that it'll spark a dialogue. So we assume at this point that you have watched episodes 9, 10, 11, and 12. And I got to tell you, more than any other time we've said that this season, if you have not watched episode 12, you need to just stop this podcast right now and just go away. Like, don't try and fast forward past when we talk about it. You just need to stop and go watch episode 12, because it's a pretty big event that happens, and I don't know if we're gonna mention it like 5 minutes from now or all the way near the end of the podcast. So there's our disclaimer, Dave.
Okay. So, anyways, episode 9 is like more so about Portia Lynn, and I also think that it's also. I'm sorry, I get confused with the numbers again. 6 is the like the African American guy, right? Right?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. So I think that one's more focused on those 2 and their relationship. And then the next episode is focused on the android. And then episode 11 is more on 5, which is the young girl, right? And Boone, which is 3.
Right.
Yeah. I'm sure everybody's sick of me right now. Like, why does this guy freaking remember their names? Like, have some sort of flashcard out.
No, man. When we were starting the talks to do this episode and preps and everything, I was like, Man, I don't know how we're going to go back over like 4 episodes. I guess in a good way. I just watched the 2 episodes like recently. Like it hasn't been that long since Friday night. And I think I wound up watching them Sunday. So at least those 2 episodes are relatively fresh.
Oh yeah, same here with me. Exactly.
But essentially, episode 9 aired 3 weeks ago, right? The 26th of August. So we're covering a lot of ground tonight. So yes, by all means, it is completely understandable that you would be confused, and I will probably be getting there soon also. So now, was this the episode where 2 had left a secret order with the android not to allow 6 off the ship?
I don't remember when that. I remember that it was talked about in episode 11, though.
Makes sense. It probably wasn't until episode 11.
Yeah, right. When he found out that he can't leave the ship because he wanted to go down there, say, "Hey guys, like the Galactic Authority is like hot on your tail."
Right. Yeah. Okay. So, I agree with you that these 4 episodes have been very sharp. I think there's maybe just kind of a recurring story type for this writing staff, and I guess it's similar. I've drawn similarities between this show and Firefly before. I think Firefly was the same way in that the heist episode is just kind of the meat and potatoes of the show, right? That you can spin the various parameters of a heist 99 different ways, and they just typically go to that menu and mix their own bowl, and can do heist episodes kind of whenever they want to. So this is kind of a heist episode, right? Because they have to go in to this lab where 2 was built and try and find more nanites. And this is the episode that kind of closes up a running thread that has been pretty popular and very significant. And but this is when they go to the facility that 5 found in 2's memories when 2, 3, and 4 when 2, 3, and 4's previous memory set had been restored.
Right, yeah.
And they determined that they had a neural link with the ship. So in order to defeat 2, 5 links to her and enters her mind and finds this spire-like structure building in the background, and that turns out to be the headquarters of whatever Will Wheaton's company is, Quantum Labs or something like that, or White Star. Yeah,
like that whole episode was exciting in like many different ways. I mean, we have the first time where we're going to Earth, we see like a little bit more into Portia's, background. And I mean, I think the most important thing there was like we got to go to Earth. Like, I'm sorry, like I know Portia's like getting saved was like very important, but it wasn't like, I don't think it wasn't the coolest thing of the episode. Like to me, like the very end when there's that creature thing that's inside of 3, like that was just like, that raises so many questions, like it's like, what was that? What are they really doing, And then it makes you wonder, did he purposely, want that thing on their ship? Is that why they overall got away, So that was cool. Like I thought that was an interesting, very sci-fi touch.
It kind of reminded me a bit of, and I don't know, this may be before your time, but so Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, there are these worm-like creatures that Khan places in the ears of Captain Terrell and Commander Chekhov, and when they wrap around, I guess they wrap around the cerebral cortex, and render the victim very susceptible to persuasion. So this creature is a little more direct. It looks like it actually enters the host and takes over. So, you have shades of like the Trill from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. You also have shades of the I forget what the creatures are called in Stargate.
No, I don't remember. I never actually watched much Stargate.
Right. So you had beings that would enter a human via the abdomen and live symbiotically with them, which since these showrunners come from Stargate, it wouldn't surprise me if that's kind of where they got the idea. Now it appeared that they got that thing off their ship, but what we don't know is did that leave behind any kind of residual effect on 3? Are there more of them in the galaxy? I guess I was working from the premise that it was some type of synthetic being that Will Wheaton's character had engineered, and that this was kind of a test run, and that what the most that he wanted out of it was to see it work in the field. And now that he's established the proof of concept, he may be able to manufacture more of these things. I don't know. Did you have any theories on?
Yeah, that was kind of my exact thought too. That they're creating like some gnarly ass like synthetic beings, it's good because it also plays on the overall theme of it, in this sci-fi world where you see his corporation where he talks about, on the how's the saying go, on the field everybody sees, they're doing some really good stuff, but underneath it all, they're actually an evil corporation, like the other ones doing like dark and bad stuff. And it's all like, it's good storytelling too, because it's all going to probably come back when the war comes up. So that's like really good, Oh, I can't hear you.
Yeah, absolutely possible that since he's not a major corporation, that those beings that he's engineered, that he's maybe able to enter the war and become a power within the war, or that he's able to ally himself with one of the larger corporations.
Yeah.
And come out ahead. So, and maybe this is the last thing we cover on this episode and move on to the other one, but one of the interesting dynamics in this episode was, we got to see 2 completely neutralized, right? And that she had to, in large part, hand over control of the mission to her crew to delegate it to them for the majority of the episode. And then I guess maybe about in the last third of the episode, she basically, I think she either borrowed nanoids from the android or had.
No, it was she powered up all of her, instead of like dying off in a couple days.
Right.
She condensed all of it to like, so she had 1 day left.
Right. So she basically had her own nanites amped up, which would cause them to expire faster.
Yeah.
And then so the last third of the episode is about that final 24 hours before she would die. So did you feel like that playing through that script that Melissa O'Neill had an opportunity to show some more of 2's kind of vulnerability and how
yeah, it was tear-wrenching, It's like you saw how much the crew cares about her and how much she cares about everybody else, and it's awesome, when you get to see an awesome TV heroine, because it's different, because like in Stargate and Star Trek, it's always been the hero. So I like seeing the difference. And
I think we got to see a little more of 5, right, in action this episode, and see some more of her independence. You every once in a while I see her in action and I wonder, okay, is she just gonna, I know Jodelle Ferland is not the most physical actress, but I sometimes have this feeling that she's going to go away for an off season and she's going to come back, in more kind of fighting condition, and she'll just completely flip in her role and become, combat ready, like the rest of the crew.
That is an interesting idea, but I think she just fits a really cool role, is that she's kind of this techie girl. She's kind of like also, in a sense, like a counselor and all sorts of stuff like that. So I'd rather see her stay the way she is. But yeah, I mean, I understand you think it'd be interesting to see her. change.
Well, and I wasn't necessarily meaning that's the way I want her character to go. I'm just every once in a while I see her and I'm wondering if that's what they're going to do with her. I could, if they don't do that with her, I guess what I wouldn't mind seeing, even though I said I don't want to see tons of these, I wouldn't mind seeing another alternate universe thing, because when they went to that one the first time, she was there was not a 5 in the alternate universe, at least not on the Raza. I would love to see, kind of like they did with Willow's character in Buffy, when they went to like an alternate timeline. I'd love to see them cross over to an alternate universe and have her just be like a complete badass.
Yeah, and also to throw in there, we finally know what Five's real name is. Yeah, it was in episode 10, and it was very short. And the Galactic Authority guy, he's all like Emily Hooper.
Yeah, or is it Emily Colburn? I thought that's what it was.
Maybe it was. Yeah, I know it was Emily something.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Now, because in another episode they mentioned her. Is it Emily Colburn, and then her nickname is Dex or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, all in all, a pretty good episode. We get to see Melissa O'Neill come through adversity. That episode being titled "Going Out Fighting," which is exactly kind of what it was about for 2. So this next episode is the one that I'm most obscure on. So episode 10 is entitled "Take the Shot." Android reveals I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, yeah, go on. I want to hear what you have to think about that one. I agree with you on that one.
Okay. Just real quick, the synopsis. Android reveals that there is a defect in her programming after having her first dream. Tempers rise as the crew debates on if she should be reset. But while she's put under observation, strange things happen to the crew throughout the corridor. So at the end of episode 9, Android wakes up in what, they didn't come out and say it directly, but I made the assumption that she was having a dream, and she was. And then there's a lot of time by her spent in that dream state in this episode. We also bring back the hologram, which is kind of the equivalent of the holographic doctor from Star Trek Voyager. But that character comes back. There is apparently a virus that's been seeded somewhere on the ship that has crawled from the computer to the android. And occupies both the android and this hologram representation of her at her default settings. So a couple of mysteries in here, right? They theorize that the virus was dropped by the alternate universe Commander Truffaut. I still feel like that virus has been there for a very long time, because I never trusted the hologram, right? Like that.
That's a really good point. I never thought about that. Maybe it was even maybe this was like even during the time when they had their memories. Like, we don't know, like, who put that virus in there.
That representation of her at the default settings has always seemed shady. There's a very little bit of physicality that. And I can't remember the actress's name who played Zoe Palmer. I think that's her name. So there's a little thing that Zoe Palmer does with her eyes that's distinct when she's in that persona. That she does a little tiny squint with her eyes that just makes me feel like there's always something shady going on behind them. And that has been ever since that rendition of her appeared. So. I think, so you were asking how I felt about it. I think the episode was one that they had to do. I think they at some point had to further explore this notion of her and her humanity. So like I said, I felt they had to do it. I felt like they had to do something with that hologram. I didn't know how long they were going to let that perpetuate. Dream. I mean, I don't feel it's cliche, but every time something happens with the android, you can pretty much draw a line from it back to some other sci-fi reference. So
yeah, exactly.
So I kind of feel like, and these guys, I feel like these guys are very clearly Star Trek fans of the Next Generation and forward. So it's not going to surprise me to see the same drum beats, albeit potentially in a different sequence, that that they took Data through, right, over the entire run of the Next Generation. And so this is one where, where Data, there was an episode where Data, discovered an ability to dream.
Give me 1 second.
Yep.
All right, I'm back.
Yep. So yeah, and she also explored notions of intimacy and love, and I think there was a point where she was offered the opportunity to stay in the dream world, and there was a lot of I can't state the theory by philosopher name, but just kind of this classic theory of which world is the real world, right? If you dream in that world, you're a better person. Who's to say that world isn't the real world, and the one that you spend most of your time living in is the fantasy. So it's an interesting, kind of a bit of an existential episode, I guess I would say. What do you think?
I'm not too much into those like obscure episodes, I'll be honest, like I kind of fast forwarded like the dream scenes because I'm like, I get it. They're just really slow, and I don't know, maybe I'm just like not intelligent enough to appreciate them. But hey, most TV viewers, like, you just want to zone out. So that's kind of what I took away from that episode was like most of the episode I didn't really care for, but it was the end part that I really we talked about this before, and you haven't mentioned it yet, but I'm sure you were, that they finally accepted her as part of the crew, and it was reiterated, I think in episode 11 and the android's a part of the crew, and then even in episode 12, Ryu even reiterated it even more, and I really liked that, that was like cool. And from here on out, we even see that the android is like even more played out as an actual part of the crew, in her actions,
Right. Yeah. So in this episode, I don't think they completely locked it in, but I think we get more indication. Well, and it's definitely sealed in episode 12, but I think we get more indication that of the android's realization of like why she has these latent emotions in the first place.
Yeah, right. Episode 12 is like big and like all of that.
Right. So we won't spoil that just yet. So let's go on to episode 12 11 because not a lot happened in episode 10, I guess. But so episode 11 entitled "Wish I'd Spaced You When I Had the Chance," which I thought was maybe potentially the most awesome title of the season. While taking a break at a station, 5 is kidnapped. 3 weeks. 3 seeks her out, while 2, 4, and Nix face trouble after the GA is tipped off about their location. With communication, with communication down and time against them, can they make their way back to the Raza? And so I apologize for stumbling through some of the synopses. I assure you that I can read. It's just I have this up on the laptop screen, and the text is a little tinier, and my eyes are really irritated right now. So I will blow it up so it's easier for
11 and 12, I feel like out of 10 or 9 and 10, I definitely think 11 and 12 were like on another scale.
Right.
Not to say that they weren't bad. It's just like in comparison, they were like, no wonder, like going together, it was like a huge impact.
Right. Yeah. So in episode 11, we get Inspector Kirkin back, who's become one of my favorite characters. And again, I have problems saying that he's a villain, but he is definitely an opponent. I have a theory that he will become an ally in the season finale, but I won't get too much into detail on that. I'll just drop it. So in this episode, they go down to the planet. 5 gets kidnapped. It's 3 who tracks her down. and kind of goes on, what is the Viggo Mortensen movie, a Time of Violence or A Year of Violence or something like that, kind of. It definitely slips over into the most murderous version of his persona.
One thing I want to add about these two episodes that I really liked is the way that they started the episodes, because both episodes kind of started with a bad situation happens right away, and the rest of the episode is like, oh my gosh, like how do they get out of this bad situation? And I just thought that was really good, and it's getting all you pumped up for the season finale. So, gotta say the producers did a really good job there.
It's interesting because you mentioned that, and one of the things is the Inspector Kirkin thing. In this episode he's a particularly difficult problem to deal with.
Oh yeah,
and 3 because it's actually a transfer transit clone that's down on the planet. So notionally you could kill the clone and Kirkin would still be out in the galaxy trying to hunt them down. 3 kind of plays on one of the character flaws in Kirkin that he's picked up on to kind of win the day, in that Kirkin is, at his core, he's a detective, he's a hunter, he's a bounty hunter, he's everything about him in his seeking out of justice is very oriented around him trying to defeat his adversary. Not just physically or with gunplay, but from an intellectual aspect. And 3 plays on that. Basically, plays a game of chicken with him and believes that he will not want his transfer transit clone killed. Because, of course, if the transfer transit clone is killed before it can get back to its transfer pod, it cannot upload its memories. And Kirkin, the real Kirkin somewhere, is so desperate to retain every bit of information that he's found out while he was on the planet and had 3 in his custody, that he's willing to give things up so that the clone doesn't get killed.
Yeah, it was really good. We got to see more about this adversary. We saw the scene. I thought that was kind of cool, where he kind of did the CSI thing. He's like, "Oh, this is how this person died." So I totally agree with you on all that.
So as you mentioned, this is the episode that 6 finds out that the android, at least in this instance, has been given a specific order by 2 to not allow him to leave the ship. That winds up becoming OBE because Nick's 4 and 2 return on the Marauder anyway, and then take 6 along with them back down to the planet. So and in this one, 3 gets kind of mortally wounded. Kirkin and his goons show up.
That was I got so teary eyed with that scene because. Yeah. I'm all like, oh. Anyways, it was teary-eyed.
Right. So the scene Dave is mentioning is 5 and 3 are trying to escape on foot. They know Kirkin is behind them somewhere, and 3, 5 is refusing to leave 3, and he basically tries to make her hate him by saying lots of mean, harsh things. And one of the things he says is I wish I would have spaced you when I had the chance. So, yeah, I agree. A very emotionally kind of string pulling scene, definitely. I think maybe my favorite part of this is when 5. So he sends 5 away theoretically, but what 5 actually does is she circles back around behind Kirkin and where his team has left their gear truck, which has missiles in it, because at this point she's seen the Marauder do a flyby as they're searching the planet's surface for her, and 3 discovers that they have ground-to-air missiles in there and goes in and programs at least one, or reprograms one, to basically reprograms 2 of them, that when the trigger is pulled to fire 1 from the shoulder-mounted launcher, that what it actually does is it detonates its warhead and the warhead of the one still in the truck. So I thought that was pretty one of those awesome kind of hero moments, where
Yeah.
yeah. So and also in this episode, this is this the one where 4 gets his memories back?
At the very, very end of it, yeah.
Okay. Right.
Another thing I want to say about this episode too was it was kind of sad, or kind of like sad, funny at the end too, where 3 is on the gurney and 5 is like, "Oh, I made you some food," and then it happened to be like the very sour dates or whatever, and that's just like another touching, because to us, like, it's, you could see it as like a brother sister or father like daughter relationship. So or 2 really close friends. Anyways, it was very like emotionally touching, those scenes, and just the intensity of, you have she gets kidnapped in the beginning of the episode. The galactic authorities are on them, and the hunt's on. They have this big decision too, like, well, do we leave them and then capture them later? And then we see Portia Lynn, take charge again. No, we're gonna stick to our guts and get our people back. So it's good.
Absolutely. So one of my questions for you is, do you think that there is any danger to the show by softening 3 up too much?
Of course. We totally like see that, depending on how soft or how harsh you are, there can be consequences, for instance, when the android got too soft, she can make an error in judgment, but that's a part of being human that she's learning, So yeah, I totally think each way you roll the dice, there's going to be a consequence.
I worry about, as I look at this arc and kind of lay out, it's the time of his transition. I worry a bit that the show is only going to be on for one more season, right? And that's why we're seeing this evolution of him. I feel like if this were a longer duration show, that we would see this evolution of him in slower increments. But I worry that they've only got one more season, and they're kind of rushing his character along to a certain place. My big fear being that that they're setting him up for self-sacrifice.
Who?
3.
Oh, yeah. I don't know, because they could end it with the final season being the war and that'd be it. Hopefully not. Hopefully, it'd be kind of maybe, because they do have the blink drive, and it would just kind of seem like a waste, just that because we haven't even seen them use it a lot. So what? They might use it in the season finale. They use it a little bit in season 12, and then they use it in season 3, and then no, they could do so many things with that blink drive, outside of, unless the war is like only half of the next season. And then that, like, yeah, that would kind of be like, oh man, like, they are kind of wrapping it up.
Yeah, all good theories. So let's go on and talk about episode 12.
There's one more thing that I want to say before we jump into episode 12. The one thing I kind of I couldn't get over was the fact that they kind of, like, full blown, like when episode 12 hit, like at the very end of it, the medic has like been written off. Like, the people that, like, I guess I'm jumping the gun here, but the people that killed him, get killed. So like, how are they ever gonna know like how he died now? Like, he's just like, oh, he just left because of his chunky issue, but nobody really knows like the truth.
Right. So the big thing, so the big ringer that's left out there is we still do not know who came back on the Marauder from the alternate universe.
Yeah, that too. We don't know. I mean, I'm actually thinking that we probably won't know until the next season.
That's possible. I guess I should throw in there as possible outcomes is, one notion is that it's one from the alternate universe, and that's how we get him back on the show. But there's not anything to say that it can't be Devin.
That's true, that he somehow survived, and then, yeah.
I mean, Devin from the alternate universe.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
The real, if they really want to knock us for a loop, who's to say that it's only one person who was on the Marauder?
Yeah, that too.
It could be, for all that, it could be one and the alternate universe Devin.
And alternate universe 5 as well.
Could be.
They're like, we've been freaking prisoners, and now we're like...
Yeah, so that's a great...
I would love it. I would just love to see that. Just all the weaker members of the alternate universe.
Right. Yeah. So episode 12, entitled "Sometimes in Life You Don't Get to Choose," the synopsis being 4 reclaims his memories as Ishida Ryu and makes plans to take back his rightful throne. While he works towards his goal, the rest of the crew struggle with the person 4 has reverted to and the trouble he brings. So, this is the realization of one of our theories, right? That the finale arc of the show was going to be about them helping Ishida get back his throne. Wonderfully orchestrated for that to happen in conjunction with the obtainment of the blink drive and their competence in using it. And also syncs up nicely with this conversation, the seed that 6 has planted in 2's head that basically says we could become like the one, like we could become a singular force in the galaxy, right? We don't need a fleet or an armada, but the fact that we have the blink drive and nobody else does means that we can swing whole tides of war, and talks about this notion of realizing a new government in the wake of the war, and that that would be formed by the people, and the Raza could be the one to intervene when any party in a checks and balances kind of system gets too far out of line. So, so like I said, we get this culmination of an arc about Ishida taking back his throne and them helping him, and then we get just all sorts of tidbits dropped throughout the show, confirming or debunking theories that we had. So, and I suspect we'll get a little more of that in episode 12. So let's just go ahead and spoil it. So Ryu gets back his memories, and one of the things that you then look for throughout the show is he the post-memory wipe Ryo, or is he...
Well, is he 4 or is he Ryu? That's the way I've been calling it.
Yes, yeah. No, that's a good way to put it. That's a good way of putting it. So one of the theories that gets debunked is when we had that scene at the end of episode 11 where he came in to talk to the android about would she help him restore his memories, and then we get a scene this episode of him arguing with Nyx, because Nyx doesn't appreciate the fact that he went and did it without talking to her first. My arguments when both of those happened, and about anybody who would be suspect of him doing it, and I'm like, I have to believe that the difference between Ryu and 4 would be really small. Like I basically said, there shouldn't be any risk in him restoring his memories, because he's pretty much going to be the same person he is now.
Oh, but it was such a huge difference.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So yes, my theory on that was completely debunked. So what winds up happening, and again, I'm going to skip to the end, and then we can work our way back, is Ryu does regain his throne and has, it has everyone who may have been associated with his betrayal all in the throne room. So he's got the Empress, the time, I call them the Time Masters, but the Probability Masters, Nyx's race show up, and turns out that they had come into alliance with the Ryu.
Yeah, which I was kind of like figuring that part out, because I'm like, man, they're way too coordinated.
Right. And yes, and it's 2 who figures it out, because she's like, how have they been one step ahead of us every time? And there were suspicions that it was a betrayer. It was a traitor in Ryu's camp of people he had influenced to help him. But I think two arrives at the realization that they've become involved. It sets up a pretty ingenious plan to break their ability to calculate probabilities. So Ryu has everyone in the throne room near the end of the episode. So he's got the Empress. He's got I think her name is Aoki, who has become like the captain of the Imperial
I don't remember the name. Miyazaki or something.
Yeah. So she was a former student of his and also a close friend, and has become captain of the Imperial Guard.
And lover, don't forget that. Well, she loved him.
Right. Yes. Which was also dropped this episode. He has the vice consul or vice regent, who I think is the primary assistant to the emperor or empress, and he has these time master dudes there as well, and so he is asked or I can't remember. I think he asked somebody what would they do with the Empress. He asked the Time Masters to predict what his decision is going to be about dispensing justice to those involved. And the Time Masters say, well, you're going to exile the Empress, and then you're going to have us calculate probabilities. And even though you hate us, the reality is that you're going to ask us to actually continue
and then
our alliance.
The brother would be on the court as well. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then right. They predicted that he would have the brother become the chairman of his high council. So Ryu at that point, and I definitely say clearly Ryu, not four, utters some code word apparently that all the Imperial Guard know, and basically directs the execution of everyone in that room except for the crew of the Raza. And the way they pan the camera, they show the Empress being executed first, and I'm like, okay, that wouldn't surprise me. She's always going to be a problem, right? No matter where you put her, so that makes sense to me. Then I figured he would execute the Time Masters because of all the problems they had given the Raza, and the fact that at the end of the day they were kind of responsible for the death of Milo, Nix's brother. But then they pan the camera, and he also executes Hiro, who is his brother and has been faithful to him and trusted him when Ryu spoke out against Hiro's mother. And that's when I fell out of my seat. Like, literally fell onto the floor thinking, oh no, I didn't see that coming, and I actually tweeted at Joseph Malozzi, who he and I follow each other on Twitter, and said, dude, I completely underestimated your writing staff's chops. Like, I just didn't see that coming at all, and I had to pick myself up off the floor. So what are your thoughts about how that episode ends in the finale?
I mean, it was totally Ryu, but as Ryu, I mean, you would think that it's like a totally heartless move, but there's actually probably some logic into it because his brother is a liability, it's a weakness, and as kind of this strict and powerful emperor, he can't have that, in the mix. Or if his brother ever has second thoughts of like double crossing him.
Right. It's been interesting because the show I've been watching alongside this one was season 2 of Marco Polo, and you have a similar situation where Kublai Khan defeats the last stronghold of the Chinese emperor and becomes emperor of China, but there's a youngling, like a maybe 6-year-old, who is the last emperor of China, who's whisked off and spends time in exile. Always being watched over by his protectors. Now Kublai comes into possession of him, and he has to consider: do I kill this kid now, or do I, raise him as part of my own family, or send him away? And my thing is, I didn't agree necessarily with the killing of a young child, but I definitely, but the math is sound, right? It's if you allow this person to survive, even if they are the most loyal person and don't rise up against you, the problem you have is that their existence might encourage collective resistance being presented by others, who will always think that that the end game needs to be that you get overthrown and they reseat the proper emperor of China on the throne. And so this is the same way. Like, even though Hero may be loyal, one of the problems is that there may be a faction of loyalists who insist on getting him back on the throne. So I get it. It made sense. It's just, wow, just way overly harsh. So yeah, that was a pretty that was a gut wrenching scene to watch through. And I should also mention that in the throne room scene right before he gains his victory, another one of my theories was debunked, and in doing so, it confirmed one of your theories, which was that Nyx did not know that Milo had killed himself, and finds that out in the throne room while she's there beside Four, who's been trying to push her away. So what are your thoughts on? I mean, so you have the opportunity to see one of your theories play out to be true. Did the scene and all the wrapping around it kind of meet your expectations, or?
It made sense now. I was like, well, because I was originally thinking, well, she might become like the new empress, and I was like, well, that debunks that theory. They're over. She's probably thinking, you lying bastard.
So what else? I mean, this episode we get final confirmation as well that it was two who altered Android's programming to.
That was good. I was like, oh.
Yep. I can't really think if anything else major got revealed this episode. Just so what are your thoughts on how this sets us up for the finale, and what are your theories about where this thing heads at this point?
Well, the preview showed like kind of like the corporate war starting, so I think it could be good because, I mean, there's still like the war that Ryu's gonna have to win, and there's still like we haven't, like they talked about it, like the blink drive, like Ryu wants to militarize the blink drive, which very well could be like the only reason he's keeping the Raza crew alive. Like, we don't know if he's keeping them alive because they're his friends, or if he wants, like, he's like, I'm going to kill you unless you let me use this blink drive. And we know that Ryu is a man of his, of oath and honor. So if they do make that agreement, there's nothing they can do about it. But Six is absolutely right. Like, even though if all of his soldiers are at, an oath, or his scientists never to get that out, there's somebody that, that there's that one factor you can't control, and now all of a sudden this blink drive is, gets out, and all of these dark forces are now using it, which would also suck, because then what makes the Raza, any different than anybody else that has the blink drive? Unless there's some way that we see, like, this is one of my theories, is that, okay, everybody gets the blink drive, but maybe somehow they figure out a way to deactivate all of the blink drives, or almost all of the blink drives, if they're all using it in this big war coming up. I can't hear you.
So I guess for me, this is a great setup for episode 13. The only detractor is I feel like they started so many drum beats that there's no way that they're going to wrap them all up and tie them all together in episode 13. So I feel like, again, we're going to roll into a season-ending cliffhanger, which, I don't know. There are some people who out and out dislike that, right? And I like like Arrow season 2, I think it is, kind of wraps with a pretty good amount of closure, or maybe with season 3, but there are no like running storylines, right? That we're waiting on coming off some cliffhanger.
Right.
The Walking Dead season 6 has ended in a cliffhanger that has definitely polarized the fan base of that show. And the problem with this show is, if you end with an actual in-scene cliffhanger, your problem is it's not on until the summer, right? So it's a 10-month wait, before we might see, kind of where things go if they end on an in-scene cliffhanger. So, overall, I guess one of my things about where does the show going? Again, I worry that the pacing of the transition of 3 feels like they're winding him up to sacrifice himself on somebody's behalf, which would be unfortunate.
I don't know. I mean, that's a very good theory, but it could also just be them showing how his characters, changed from being kind of like selfish for himself to being very selfless, He's like, I would get, now he's kind of like, I would give anything for this crew, including my life.
Right.
Which is like, that's one of the beauties that we've seen from season 1 to season 2 is how much the characters have grown and they've changed from essentially who they were to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Right. What this also leaves us open for is, what do we think is going to happen with 4? So let me ask you of the 4 potential answers in my multiple choice question. Do you think that the crew of the Raza is going to kill 4? Do you think that they're going to capture 4 and remove his memories from prior to the memory wipe? Do you think that this 4 is actually the 4 from the alternate universe? Because that 4 had actually taken his throne already, and was more ruthless than our 4. So do you think there's a possibility that this 4 that has now gotten himself on the throne is actually the more ruthless one from the alternate universe? And maybe it's Ryu on the Marauder. So I don't know. Those are 3. I was trying to come up with a 4th. So, I mean, how do you think the major points of this thing are going to unfold?
I guess a 4th possible answer would be, they don't, none of that. And
they just all walk out of the throne room, and Ryu just becomes this kind of standing threat that they may have to deal with someday.
Yeah, well, I don't think of it like that. I think they might use him as an ally. And I don't. So that's what I think. I think they're going to try to use him, when they're in risky situations,
That's possible, although they do have to resolve the conflict, right? That now that he's on the throne, he's gonna want the blink drive.
Yeah.
He's gonna want to weaponize it and replicate it, and they're gonna be adamantly against that.
So you kind of have if the evil, I guess kind of the evil choice would be they give him the blink drive, but he's a permanent ally now that they can use at their dispense. The good choice would be, kind of the in-between choice would be, which is kind of good and bad, is they kill him and they stop him from using the blink drive. And then kind of the good choice is that they capture him and they put his good memories back in there. And then you have just kind of like, well, what if he's the alternative? So that's kind of like the other like options. So,
all right. Now, so I'll state my understanding, which runs counter to the thing you mentioned. Of course, the one time I did that, I turned out to be wrong. So as far as I understand, he has both sets of his memories. That in that episode where they finally resolved the virus, what they determined was that there were, I think, tools in the medical bay or whatever. But when they found out, when they this is back in the season, point in the season where they resolved that they were going to keep those memory encephalograms, but Android and 5 theorized a way in which they could actually apply the memories, but you would retain your ones that you had after the memory wipe. And then, of course, it's 5 who poses the question, makes the statement that you by loading those memories, you are going to change them back to what they were before. And in this case, I think we saw exactly that play out.
Yeah. I don't know. So I think we'll just have to find out, because it left me with no clues about which way it would roll, and I don't have any gut feeling either way. I don't think they would kill him. I think that would be super bad. I think that would just. I think in their position, they don't want another ally, so I think they're rather going to try a friendly route and try to convince him, or they're gonna be forced to give up Blink Drive, or they willingly give up the Blink Drive. Because all we heard was how Six's approach was to that.
Right. Yep. Very true. Very true. I'm wondering if the final fight with him is going to be between he and Nyx.
Yeah.
So that will be very interesting. So I don't know, man. I think we've kind of covered everything about these 4 episodes. Is there anything else you wanted to go over?
No. So I guess we have one more episode left then.
Yep. Then for this show, they're all done, and we're all done covering it, of course.
Yeah, but then wondering if you want to do a Luke Cage one.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
If you're going to watch that series, I would definitely be up for that.
Okay.
Very cool. So stay tuned, fans. I don't know if it'll still be called What You Can't See, since that won't really be an extended pun based off the title of the show that we'd be covering, but we'll think of something. But yeah. So in conjunction with that, I was going to mention. Oh, man, I just realized I should have done the math before. I was only thinking about the fact that thing's going to drop, and I'm just going to be able to binge watch it. But it also drops at the time that all the CW shows are spooling back up, and The Walking Dead.
Oh, that's right. So, because how would we do our episodes, because Netflix ones come all at once?
Right. Yeah. I think probably. Well, we'll see. I don't know. I haven't seen how many episodes there are, but I know with Marco Polo. At first, I was going to do. I don't know. I was looking at doing individual episodes, but for the reviews and the podcast especially, I'd probably pitch that we do 2 episodes at a time.
Yeah, so, that probably makes sense, and we just kind of analyze it and talk about feedback.
Right. Yep. So stay tuned for that. Also, please tune back in for the final episode of this segment of What You Can't See when we cover the finale of Dark Matter. Dark Matter and Marco Polo are the 2 shows that helped me get through the summer apocalypse. Because when all those CW shows went off the air after their finales, I was like, "There's nothing for me to do." But they kind of rescued me. The contrast this time is, this show will end, and all those shows will be going on, and I'll be wishing for next summer when I'm like, man, it was really great just to buckle down and just focus on 2 shows. So it's been an awesome run. I am going to miss this show being off the air for 9 or 10 months, though.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
Awesome. So it's been great talking to you, man. Thanks so much for carousing me to go ahead and get back on and do this. And everybody else, please join us for the final episode sometime probably next week. So Dave, if people want to follow you in social media, where can they find your stuff?
Comic Book Guy 90 on Twitter.
Want to catch up with me? You can find me at Agasicles Stamas on Twitter. That's 2 S's in all one word, 2 S's in the middle. So thanks so much for joining in. We are out of here.